And we are joined by Donna Murch, Associate Professor of History at Rutgers, President of the New Brunswick chapter of Rutgers AAUP-AFT, which is the union representing the full-time faculty, grad workers, postdoc associates, and counselors. And Donna is also the chair of the union's BIPOC caucus. Donna, thank you so much for coming on, and what a t-shirt. I'm so glad we get to see it.
You can see I've positioned myself in order to show off our union logo.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
this
So
actually became the union logo in 2014 when we had a new generation of union leadership.
yeah, I mean, and you're holding a pencil right there with that's amazing. I love to see it. So I look, I'm from New Jersey, so Rutgers is, we both are actually, myself and my producer. Rutgers is an institution, obviously, and this strike is historic. The fact that you guys have uh, over come together with three unions, and it's around 9,000 workers banding together to stand up to the university. Like, how did this decision come about, and how were you all able to kind of come together and show, as your shirt says, solidarity with one another?
Yeah, thank you for that question.
Sure.
What's emerged at Rutgers is the Coalition of Rutgers unions, and it dates directly back to the pandemic. So you had alliances of all the unions at Rutgers. There are a lot of them. There are 24. And since the early 2000s, they would bargain together, sometimes on healthcare, where there were shared interests. So they were like a loose confederation. But it was during the pandemic, when 5% of the workforce was laid off, that we came together largely on Zoom meetings to organize to stop the layoffs. When people were laid off, they lost their health insurance. So we all remember what it was like for New Jersey in 2020, those first months. I think the UN coalition, honestly, is something beautiful that came out of something very difficult. So in order to prevent more layoffs, the Rutgers AAUP-AFT, which is one of the unions, chose its own form of structured furloughs that were funded by the Department of Labor. And it was our way of saying, we will come together in solidarity to do a structured furlough if you agree not to lay off any more workers by January until after January 1st, 2022, which meant that if anyone was laid off at that time, they would be able to keep their health insurance until the end of the year. So that's where the union coalition came from.
Right. And then what happened when that kind of ask was brought to the university?
We won.
Yeah.
We won.
Well, there you
Yes.
go.
And not only did we win preventing any layoffs, we also won the first graduate extension at a public university, which meant that graduate students weren't able to do research, labs, and archives were shut down. And so it was a real crisis that their time to degree is continuing, the clock is still ticking, but they're unable to do research. And so we won a grad extension. So that's the prehistory. That happened last year, but that explains the strength and the power of the protests that you're seeing. I would describe that as the arc of how we got to where we are now.
Gotcha. And now we're in this moment. The strike started on Monday. Not again, as I said, 9,000 over 9,000 employees, workers, banding together and standing up to a university president who, I mean, again, you guys are in the middle of bargaining. I know that this is a touchy subject, but like, he was making claims in the lead up to the strike that this was illegal. I'm pretty sure it's not. I haven't been able to find a New Jersey statute that would show that it is. Like, what was your reaction to the university president coming out and saying that so aggressively?
I'd say this was my reaction, and also everyone that I talked to, every undergraduate and faculty member, was shock and disappointment, especially because Jonathan Holloway is a historian.
Mm,
And his first book was about Black class relations and labor intellectuals and left liberals in the 1930s. But to misrepresent New Jersey in that way, here we are in a deep blue state that is friendly to organized labor, to say that public sector strikes are illegal. I mean, it's disinformation. To
right.
explain the specific reason that he's wrong is that when public sector workers go on strike, police do not come to arrest them. They do not say, you're breaking the law, this is a strike. What happens is the employer decides to go to a judge to see if he can get a court injunction, a cease and desist order. If he gets that, he or she comes back and then informs the striking workers of it, and they refuse, then he has to go back to ask for penalties. In other words, fines on the union, arrests, or individually levered fines. So the important thing about this is that the agency is with the employer to seek the court injunction. But to categorically say that public sector strikes are illegal in New Jersey is wrong. And there have been instances where injunctions have been used, sadly, against often K through 12 public school teachers in different municipalities. And the good thing about this discussion happening is that I think as labor and as people who care about workers, we need to come together and pass protective legislation in New Jersey so this does not, that people do not misrepresent the nature of public sector employment in New Jersey.
100%. I mean, I was just arguing on the show the other day. Now I'm in Brooklyn, and I wish that New York City had the strength, or had the institutional strength that the Chicago Teachers Union does, because every state in this country would benefit from teachers unions having more power, and that would obviously, I think, affect all the way up to public university workers like yourself and the other 9,000 strikers that you've come together with.
Absolutely. And I will just say, I have to write a little love letter to New Jersey.
Yeah.
Tickets. There are thousands of people. And when I was there yesterday, the majority of them were undergraduates. So what's happening at Rutgers is very, very special. We have huge undergraduate support and participation. New Jersey is a place where class matters, and people care about their public institutions.
I mean, I saw that photo that was circulated by your colleague of the Deke frat guys. We actually showed it on the show on Tuesday, raising their fists in solidarity. I mean, look, I went to college with a lot of Greek life. I mean, and that was, gosh, it was, that level of class solidarity at I went to private college, Lafayette. I could not have seen that happening. But even like in the years following, I just think that the consciousness of young people about the importance of solidarity behind labor has exploded, and to see that is so encouraging. I'm sure for you guys that must have been a real like some wind behind your sails.
Absolutely, it's really moving to me. I taught at Rutgers for 20 years, and I was there yesterday with some faculty who have been there 20 or 30 years. And we all wanted to lay down new memories, because this is one of the most profound things that any of us, we all agree this is the most profound thing we have ever seen happen at Rutgers. And to feel that sense of strength and solidarity, I will say that the scale of undergraduate solidarity also has to do with the nature of the union demands, which are not traditional wage demands that benefit the most elite workers. Instead, it's targeting the most vulnerable workers, which are part-time lecturers and graduate students. And the students are very aware that these people are an important part of the teaching faculty. So they care about their professors, and they've been upset for a long time about the starvation pay of adjuncts and graduate students. That's one piece. And the second one is, and I do think that we are still in the process of negotiation, but I am very hopeful that we're going to win our important undergraduate demands, some of them, including a $15 minimum wage minimum for undergraduates, the forgiveness of fines, fees, and debt relief that's preventing students from being able to re-enroll if they're carrying debt and to receive their diplomas. And that is so powerful. So I think there's also a recognition that, following the Chicago Teachers Union, our working conditions are our students' learning conditions. And we're using our power as multiple job categories, including the tenure stream faculty that have tenure protections, to organize and to fight for more vulnerable workers who don't have those same protections, put it like that.
Right. So in terms of the central demands, you mentioned the pay there. What are some of the things that you guys are putting at the forefront in the midst of your negotiations with the university?
Okay, so the first one is that part-time lecturers who are paid piecemeal by class and have to have their contracts renewed every semester. So you'll have people that have worked at Rutgers for 20 years, but they don't know until late August or early January, just often days, sometimes once the semester has already started, whether they have contracts. So greater job security for part-time lecturers and linking their pay directly to that of the non-tenure track full-time faculty. It's called a fractional appointment. So it's the idea that we're going to get rid of this completely sweated contingent class of labor that's being paid anywhere. At Rutgers, I think that the adjunct pay was around $5,100 per class pre-tax. So stopping that and allowing them to get the full recognition that they deserve. Okay, that's one. Two is a living wage for graduate students, extremely important. Rutgers wages right now are 30 for the graduate students, around 30,000, and the estimate that a living wage in New Jersey is 48,000. So this is an essential wage demand. We all know how expensive New Jersey is between Philadelphia and New York. And then the third one sounds technical, but it's really important. It's the recognition of graduate student fellowship recipients. So fellowships are what you receive when you are doing your graduate studies or doing research, not only working as a teaching assistant or a grad assistant. Making sure that this class of graduate workers is recognized as part of the union bargaining unit so that we can bargain on their health insurance and on their pay to make sure that there's equity across the board, not only for teaching assistants and for graduate assistants, but also for students that have received fellowships to complete their degrees. And it in it itself is a form of academic labor. I would say that that is a theme that runs throughout the union demands, which is paying, protecting, and equalizing job conditions for the most vulnerable and lowest paid, but also really insisting that the university focus on teaching, research, and service to the communities. Finally, I would say is the bargaining, at the top of the list, or the bargaining for the common good demands. And I mentioned some of them for the undergraduates, but we also have them for the communities in which Rutgers is located that are heavily Black and Brown communities, new immigrant. So making sure that that Rutgers is serving those communities versus this relationship where, because the university is there, it drives up rents very, very high. And so it makes it difficult for these communities.
Gotcha. All right. Well, that's helpful to know. Thanks for laying that out. I just a few more questions for you, and then I'll let you go. I'm sure you're in the midst of a very busy time, but I know it's delicate. But what's your assessment so far of the role that Governor Phil Murphy has played in these negotiations? Because he was kind of publicly saying, I'm going to be on top of this. It seemed like a good development that he said, no legal action can be taken by the university. That seems ridiculous. That's just my, I'm not deep in this, but I'm curious if you have anything that you'd be comfortable sharing about your feelings there.
Yeah. Well, right now our bargaining team is in Trenton in the governor's mansion, literally working around the clock. I went to bed at about 11:30 last night, and as far as I know, they were still working. There was the possibility that they were going to be expected to work through the night, which is really hard, that kind of bargaining. So I do think that with the governor intervening, this is the first time that we've really had substantive responses to our counter proposals. We had been without a contract for 286 days, and there were many proposals that we submitted in May, including the grad articles, that had received no response until very recently. So just the presence and intervention of the governor has been crucial, in addition to his, deal, you would call it, or his insistence that Jonathan Holloway not attempt to go get an injunction to criminalize the strike. I think these kinds of negotiations are complex, but we remain very hopeful, and there's been some movement on economic demands that matter a lot.
Okay, good to know. Lastly, if our viewers want to support your guys' efforts, what's the best way that they can? Is there a website? Or, I know obviously if you're in Jersey, around the New Brunswick area, you can come out and show support, but any recommendations?
Okay, yes, I definitely have some. It's very important to reach out to the governor's office. People need to signal in New Jersey how much they care about what's happening at Rutgers, which is one of the biggest employers, and what this strike means in terms of the right of public employees. So I think I would put that at the very top of the list, like phone calls, letters, emails, tweets, really talking about how important they are. The second thing is we do have a strike fund, and you can go to the website of the Rutgers AAUP-AFT, and you'll see it right away. Third is come to our pickets. One of the things that has been amazing, really moving, because we have people of all ages, all colors, every different type of job and person. You know, a lot of people from the AFL-CIO, the Central Labor Council, as well as the labor councils of individual counties. And that to me has just been amazing, like meeting all these workers on the picket lines. Also, they come to the union hall to see what's happening and to get t-shirts and posters. So really come out with us and picket with us. They're amazing. Thousands of people, and there's a lot of programming during these pickets. They're not only speeches and talks, but they're performances. It's a way to really get that flavor of what a kind of special place that New Jersey is and Rutgers is. Lots of talent and lots of goodwill and solidarity.
Well, awesome. Bradley right now is pulling up your website. I just wanted to show it for the audience. We'll also be putting a link to this in the podcast, YouTube, and descriptions, and also at majority.fm. It's Rutgers AAUP.org, and you can go there and help out with the strike fund. So thank you so much for your time today. Donna Murch, Associate Professor of History at Rutgers, President of the New Brunswick chapter of the Rutgers AAUP-AFT, on strike now. Thanks so much, Donna. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Of course.